Hello and welcome to Rise Unwind Orlando. My name is Dan. You know, each and every week, my friends and I talk to people from across the country about things you could do in your neighborhood. And on this week's show, we got this.
If you would have told me 30 years ago there would be congressional hearings in U.S. Congress about UAPs and UFOs, I would have said, you know what? That would be wonderful, but it will never happen.
The biggest thing is that you can have a happy and healthy relationship without it being society's traditionals type of norms. We do things completely different. We even do things a lot of times different than a lot of other polygamous families, and that's okay.
Well, the bottom line is so many actors enjoy playing the bad guy or the villain, and you know, you really didn't have the opportunity to see too many villains who happen to be deaf.
All of that and more right here on Rise and Unwind Orlando. You ever feel your heart race for no reason? It's like sprinting while you're standing still. September is AFib Awareness Month, and a new study estimates more than 10.5 million Americans are living with atrial fibrillation, a condition that can raise the risk of stroke and heart failure if it's not managed. Joining me is Dr. Dedric Clarke, a cardiac electrophysiologist, to break down what AFib is and why early treatment matters, and for the latest options to help people feel better and live safer. Welcome, Dr. Clarke. How are you?
Good morning to you, and thank you for the opportunity to discuss such an important topic.
All right, let's start simple. What is atrial fibrillation and how common is it, and why do I struggle saying the word all the time?
Well, I can help you with two of the three. So let's just start off with what is atrial fibrillation. Atrial fibrillation, or AFib, which is okay to say it just like that, is a cardiac arrhythmia. And what an arrhythmia is, basically, is when the electrical system of the heart is beating abnormally. Now, normally the upper chamber of your heart and then the lower chamber typically beat at a rate of 60 to 90 beats per minute when we're at rest. When a person flips into AFib, spontaneously the upper chamber is now beating 300 to 500 beats per minute, very chaotically. Now, as you alluded to, atrial fibrillation is the most common arrhythmia in the United States. It is the most common arrhythmia in the world. Over 10 million people in the United States are affected by atrial fibrillation. And it is estimated that in the next decade, that number can increase by up to 32%. 1 in 4 adults over the age of 40 will be impacted by atrial fibrillation at some point in their lifetime.
So why is early diagnosis and treatment so important for people with AFib?
So that's a great question. The reason is that atrial fibrillation is a progressive disease. Let me just talk real briefly about the symptoms of atrial fibrillation. Some of the symptoms of atrial fibrillation are fatigue, lightheadedness, dizziness, anxiety feeling. I feel my heart racing. I get short of breath when I exert myself. And some patients say that I feel like I'm just slowing down. Well, when left untreated, those symptoms will only propagate in advance, making it more difficult to reverse. Also, if left untreated, there are other clinical conditions that are very severe. Untreated atrial fibrillation is affiliated with a 5 times higher risk of heart failure, a 2.4 times higher risk of stroke, and a 2 times higher risk of sudden cardiac death, and is associated with higher risk of developing early dementia as well. So it is critical that detection, diagnosis, and treatment is implemented for all of our patients.
And what are today's treatment options? Like, walk us through some of the medications, lifestyle changes, and when procedures like catheter ablation comes into the picture.
Perfect. And so typically when somebody is diagnosed with atrial fibrillation, depending on their risk profile, they're put on a blood thinner and a medication to either control the rate, and sometimes we put them on medication to try to control the rhythm. Those are called antiarrhythmics. Now, for some patients who either cannot tolerate those medications, or there are side effects of the medications, or for some patients, unfortunately, even though they may tolerate the medication, their atrial fibrillation can progress in spite of that. There's a procedure called catheter ablation. Now, what a catheter ablation is a minimally invasive, safe, effective procedure in which the procedure is designed to isolate the electrical triggers that is triggering atrial fibrillation in the heart from the normal conduction system of the heart. And when performed, it allows the normal system to maintain what's called a normal rhythm. like we would all like to have. The procedure is typically done as an outpatient. And I would say that although all procedures have a risk affiliated with it, the risk is very low. I'm an electrophysiologist, and outpatients and your listeners should be comfortable talking with their primary physicians to discuss if catheter ablation is the right option for them.
And for anyone that wants to learn more or get next steps, where should they go?
So Johnson & Johnson is providing comprehensive patient resources to discuss all the things about atrial fibrillation. There's also a website called Get Smart About AFib. That's all one word, getsmartaboutafib.com. And on that website, not only can you get more information, you can also take a survey to see if you are a candidate for catheter ablation and be put in touch with a local electrophysiologist to discuss if catheter ablation is a good procedure for you.
Dr. Clarke, thanks for joining me this morning.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the opportunity.
Ancient Aliens is back with new episodes on History Channel, and the conversation has jumped from your TV to the stage. The live show, Ancient Aliens Live, is touring the country, and joining us today is the face of the series, Giorgio Tsoukalos. Giorgio, it's good to see you, my friend. How are you?
Hi, Dan. Thank you so much for having me on, and I'm doing great. Thanks very much. How about you?
I'm doing good. For the fans out there who only know about the TV series, what does this Ancient Aliens Live deliver that you can't get from a single episode? Is there a moment from it, from doing it, that has kind of surprised you too?
Absolutely, because Ancient Aliens Live is something to give back to the fans, because only the fans have kept us on the air for so long. Because without an audience, you can't be on the air. So thanks to all the fans for keeping on our lights. And so as a thank you, we are crisscrossing the U.S. together with myself, Jason Martell, William Henry, and Nick Pope, some of the stars of the show. And we present essentially a 90-minute immersive Ancient Aliens episode with photos, videos, discussions, and a Q&A at the end with the audience. And so if you want to see how we interact with each other and what our banter is, and if you want to hear us speak in full sentences, then this is a fun night out on the town for the whole family. And it's a little roller coaster around the world full of adventure, exploring ancient mysteries. So come on down, check it out.
And the season feels bigger, with perspectives colliding, some new discoveries. In your words, what's new or evolved about Ancient Aliens right now?
Well, Ancient Aliens, we are now also covering modern aliens, because I've got news. They never left. They've always been here observing, because back then they were called the Watchers. Well, a watcher never stops watching. And so what were our ancestors referring to? They were referring to visiting extraterrestrials who imparted the first basics of science, mathematics, agriculture, engineering, all the medicine, all the astronomy, all these different things. And so I think that if you teach that to somebody, you never lose interest to observe their progress. And so I think that is what's going on right now. These increased UFO sightings up in the sky, I think it's them showing themselves slowly to illustrate, hey, you are not alone. And by the way, you've never been alone.
And skeptics are always asking for that strongest piece of evidence. The one thing that you kind of point to and say, let's start here. What is it for you and why?
So long ago, I would have completely answered this question differently, and I would have rattled off a whole list of what I find concise evidence. However, over time, I learned that any skeptic in this is only ready to accept any of our propositions if they are ready for it. And so I don't care anymore if the skeptics agree with me or not. The evidence is there. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times I've been asked, I love Ancient Aliens, but how come you never show any evidence? Well, in the almost 300 episode we've done, it's all evidence. The evidence is in the episode. So this illustrates perfectly that what might be evidence to some is not evidence to someone else. And so time will tell And I know that we are sitting on the right horse. And, we are in the paradigm shift already. I mean, if you would have told me 30 years ago there would be congressional hearings in US Congress about UAPs and UFOs, I would have said, you know what? That would be wonderful, but it will never happen. And only last week, a few days ago, there was the third congressional hearing about UAP/UFOs in the halls of Congress. I mean, we live in the most extraordinary of times.
And you guys often connect mythology, history, traditions. Where do you draw that line between legend and historical data?
Well, the line is that it is a fact that any legend, any mythology has to be rooted in some type of a reality, because not a single idea is born out of a vacuum. And so if you have, biblical stories of, let's say, Ezekiel, who is taken up by this glowing glory of the Lord, as he calls it, but then it descends and he sees that there's a wheel within a wheel, and it was as noisy as 1,000 waterfalls and things like that. So you have to ask yourself, wait a second, were these just visions? Did it all just happen in somebody's head because, they drank too much or they smoked one or two substances? That to me is insulting the intelligence of our ancestors. Our ancestors commemorated these things because they knew whatever they were observing was not ordinary. It was extraordinary because they lived in nature. They were way closer to nature than we will ever be in this day and age. I mean, they lived in nature. I mean, they had no shelter in the earliest of days. They had to find shelter. They had to, find food, hunter-gatherers. And so when you have the earliest of petroglyphs that have very strange beings in them, you have to wonder, well, how did they come up with this if there was nothing to base this upon? Because any psychiatrist or psychologist will tell you that you can't come up with a story unless you have a basis for it. And where is the basis at the beginning of history? There is no basis. We have a basis today, but back then there was no cumulative knowledge to draw from.
Giorgio Tsoukalos, thanks for joining us today. Ancient Aliens airs Friday at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on History Channel, and episodes available to stream the next day. For tour dates and tickets to Ancient Aliens Live, you got to check out ancientalienslive.tour.com. Giorgio, thanks for hanging out with me this morning.
Wonderful, Dan, and I can't wait to do it again next time. Thank you.
Have you ever wondered what it's really like inside a plural marriage? TLC's hit series Seeking Sister Wife is back with new stories and familiar faces, exploring the ups and downs of polygamous relationships. One of those families is the Davises. Nick, April, and Jennifer are not only preparing to welcome another baby girl, but are also exploring the possibility of adding a longtime family friend as a potential sister wife. Welcome to the show, Nick, April, and Jennifer. How are you?
Hi, doing well, thank you.
Hi, thanks for having us.
All right, for those that are kind of new to the show, can you share a little bit about your journey as a family and kind of what led you to this plural marriage?
Just this unconventional lifestyle is just something that's always appealed to me for quite a while. And thankfully, at whatever point I met April, she kind of fell into it also. She noticed the benefits and recognized it as being something that she wanted to do also. And so we've just been steadily just building together, working on our family. We met Jennifer. Jennifer came along and she was with it too. So the three of us have been together for about 8 years now.
And this season highlights your friendship with Teresa. What made now the right time to explore whether she could be part of your family in a deeper way?
Yes, so this season you will see us courting Teresa. She's been friends with us for over 10 years. And honestly, it was the kind of thing where she approached Jenny and I. She knows that the women in our relationship do the initial seeking. And she made it very known to us that she has feelings for Nick and would like the opportunity to be able to date us and potentially become our sister wife. And so after some correspondence, we decided to go on a date.
And Nick, the show touches on your struggle moving from like best friend to husband. How are you working through that transition?
Oh, wow. It's not easy for me because just the way that I operate in life, I don't like mixing things up. I don't like mixing relationships. So I keep my boundaries very strict. So the time that Teresa has spent as my friend, she's just strictly been my friend, all the way platonic. So to try to move things over now after having so long where her and I were just buddies, if you will, it's definitely something that's not easy for me.
And with the new baby on the way, how does growing your family both add joy and maybe some challenges to this plural lifestyle?
Adding our baby Charlie has definitely, of course, been so overjoying to us. But also, it adds maybe another level of potential complication to adding a potential sister wife. That person is going to need to be okay with, young children and, a newborn in the house. So we want to make sure whoever's coming in is the most comfortable with that and, wants that sort of family lifestyle.
What do you hope viewers take away from your story this season, whether they agree with your choices or not?
Honestly, I think that the biggest thing is that you can have a happy and healthy relationship without it being society's traditionals type of norms. We do things completely different. We even do things a lot of times different than a lot of other polygamous families, and that's okay. And we want to show that you can do things differently and you're happy and have a good family home.
I'm not in any way trying to promote the idea that all men should be polygamous, but you should definitely seek to create the kind of life that you want for yourself. Absolutely.
And do the towels say his and hers and hers?
We definitely should get those. Absolutely.
All right, you three. You can follow the Davis family journey and meet the other families with the new season of Seeking Sister Wife, now playing on TLC. I want to thank you three for joining me this morning.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Have you ever wondered about the stories behind some of heavy metal's most legendary and sometimes misunderstood figures? From Randy Rhoads to Dimebag Darrell, Wendy O. Williams to Judas Priest on trial, these are tales of creativity, tragedy, and survival. Hulu's new docuseries Into the Void takes us behind the curtain of metal to reveal the raw and very human stories behind the music. So joining me are the creators of the series, Evan Husney and Jason Eisner. Welcome to the show, you two.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks so much for having us.
All right, heavy metal has always carried a reputation for being extreme in sound and lifestyle. What made you want to explore the more human side of these artists in Into the Void?
Well, outside of, Jason and I growing up as huge metal fans, and any opportunity to make this your job is a total dream come true. Outside of our love and passion for, metal and wanting people to, appreciate the genre more, I think that metal is a very interesting world to examine because, as you said at the top of the show, it is a genre that is often, misunderstood, misrepresented, or even weaponized by other people to further their own agendas in many ways historically, which, of course, our show examines throughout the 80s and early 90s. And so I think it was an opportunity for us to kind of create a series that goes beyond just, their career trajectories, their albums, like the process of writing music and their hit songs, to really reveal the human side of all these figures and artists in this world, and to really show that, they're much more than just their larger than life stage personas. These are regular people who go through the same things we do, tragedy, triumph, resilience, perseverance, and things like that. And it really gave us the opportunity to highlight that with this series, and any opportunity to get more people into the genre or to respect the genre, to understand it more, is definitely awesome and enough for me.
And the series, it spotlights icons like Randy Rhoads and Dimebag Darrell, but also figures people may not know like Anne Boleyn or the Iranian band Confess. How did you decide what stories you chose to tell?
Yeah, I mean, it was a real process of, picking some of the stories that, we felt that there was more space for even the most hardcore fan to learn something new about, in case of Randy Rhoads or the Dimebag Darrell story. But we also wanted the series to go deeper, and we wanted there to be a lot of discovery stories and stories from bands that, you may never have heard of. And we really prioritized the strength of that human story in the episode to kind of guide us in terms of which ones we were going to pick. And I'm very excited for people to understand, or, to really discover the music of Enemy and the jaw-dropping story behind that band. And as well as, somebody like Anne Boleyn of the band Hellion, who really, should have made it and did make it, didn't make it in the industry. And of course, we're going to get into all the reasons why that was, which really makes it definitely a cautionary tale.
And one of the more striking episodes is about Judas Priest being put on trial, accused of influencing a tragedy. What is that moment, or any other moment within the series that talk about the cultural battles metal has faced?
Well, in particular, sorry, I feel like I'm Jason, if you want to hop in, but for me, it's like I feel with that story in particular, it's very relevant to now. I mean, Judas Priest, that story and everything that happened in terms of, really looking at sort of a conservative, Christian movement in the 80s that was sort of looking at metal as this very evil, thing that was corrupting youth. It was causing teenage delinquency. It was inspiring crimes and things like that. And they sort of weaponized the genre to further their own cause. And that really caused that spiraled off into the PMRC and other things and other forms of censorship with heavy metal for a long time. And I feel like, there was sort of a prophecy in terms of what, all of the metal artists of that era were fighting against, that we're sort of seeing coming into fruition now. And I think in terms of free speech and in terms of other things. So I really do feel like it's very prescient to look at these stories from the past and sort of look at what we can learn from them in terms of, the freedom of artistic expression, trying to be put under attack and trying to be, harnessed and taken away.
Yeah, I think there's also a lot for people to learn from our episode on Confess, who are this a metal band from Iran who were persecuted for their music that spoke out about religion and the government, and they were actually arrested by the government for their music and were facing very serious jail time, and they had to flee their country to be able to pursue their art and their freedom of expression. And so I think that's definitely an episode I think that's going to feel very timely right now.
Exactly.
I want to thank you two for joining me today. All 8 episodes of Into the Void are now streaming on Hulu. If you haven't seen it yet, check it out. It's a powerful look at the legends, the overlooked trailblazers, and the stories that continue to shape heavy metal culture today. I want to thank you two for joining me.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
Netflix's new limited series, Black Rabbit, is already making waves, set in the high-stakes world of New York City nightlife, and it follows 2 brothers whose bond is tested by ambitious, family, and danger. The cast features Jason Bateman, Jude Law, and Academy Award-winning Troy Kotsur. Joining us are Troy Kotsur, who plays Joe Mancuso, and Forrest Weber, who plays Junior. Welcome to the show, you two. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
All right. For viewers that are just discovering it, what is Black Rabbit all about?
Black Rabbit is a really exciting, thrilling show that is going to drop on Netflix on the 18th with Jason Bateman and Jude Law leading the way. They play estranged brothers at the beginning of the show who are running a nightclub and restaurant called the Black Rabbit. And when Jason Bateman's character shows up into town after being MIA for a few years, he brings a lot of trouble with him, and Troy and I are some of that trouble.
And the show is set in New York's nightlife scene. What makes the backdrop such a powerful setting for the story?
Well, New York's a place where so much happens underground, and you have a black market. It's not what you see, but it's what people don't see. You have to really look beneath the surface and between the lines when you're going through the story. So it's so nice to show that underworld and what's really going on deep inside the underbelly of New York. And my character has his office in a Russian bathhouse basement. And I'm pretty tall. I'm 6'1". I really had to duck down and go into that Russian bathhouse. That's just one example of the secret hidden corridors in New York City that we show.
And Forrest, what stood out to you most about your character, Junior?
Junior was fascinating. He's a fascinating human being because Junior couldn't be, I think, more different than I am, but everything about Junior I could find truth in. I could find something relatable, right? So he is very much a product of his environment, and he's struggling really the whole time with trying to gain acceptance from his father over here, who runs a tight ship. It was really exciting to be able to step outside my norm a little more. I've been on a bad guy streak, played 3 or 4 in a row here, but Junior got to amp it up another level and provide us with some really unexpected, hot-tempered, rash decisions that sent the plot into some interesting places. I'll say that.
And what's great about Junior, if I may chime in, is he's a bad guy that also knows sign language. That's really cool.
And Troy, what drew you to playing Joe Mancuso in the series?
Well, the bottom line is so many actors enjoy playing the bad guy or the villain. And, you really didn't have the opportunity to see too many villains who happen to be deaf. Yeah. And so it's really nice to see that on screen. What is that experience like? And to be on that journey of that villain's journey and how he runs his underworld business, which is really fascinating. But, most of us know that in the deaf community, we do have a history of some deaf criminals and folks involved in the black market. But I tried to imagine what it would be like to run this business. And I really wanted to give audiences and give them the opportunity to see this deaf villain in Black Rabbit.
And Troy, you and I, we hung out a couple years ago, right before Coda, your big win on Coda. And here's a little picture of us. There it is.
When you met me, I'm still the same person. I'm not a bad guy, just to be clear. Let's separate my real life from my character.
I think that night I had one too many drinks, so look how excited I am there.
Well, maybe I became angry that night. Maybe it was because of you.
That could be it. That's what happened. Working alongside Jason Bateman and Jude Law, what moments really stuck out with you guys?
I'll say being able to learn from them on set on a day-to-day basis was an absolute treat. They both operate at such a high level, but what was really special about them was how open and collaborative that they were. And to a newcomer like me, they were like, come sit at the table, trust yourself, we trust you. So being given that level of freedom from A-listers like that is the treat of a lifetime, and I can't sing their praises enough.
Hey, I want to thank you too for joining me this morning. Black Rabbit is now streaming on Netflix. Check it out.
Thank you. Have a day.
And that's it for Rise Unwind Orlando. Want to thank you for tuning in and checking out the show. And until next week, that was Rise Unwind.
Valentine, string your magic arrow, pierce it through my heart. Valentine, bring me love and sorrow. It's not fair to leave me in the dark. Every year I write you something different. Every tear's a fight. Maybe I don't deserve it.